Well, as promised, I'm back with another film of Gaspar Noé. After reviewing Irreversible, which surprisingly received a lot of views, I'm not sure exactly why. I think maybe because not so many people reviewed that film, but it was a very good film. And while was reviewing it, I promised that I would watch other pieces of Gaspar Noé. So here it is. And what a ride, I must say. So, welcome to RevivalFlix, where we try to find some classic films, some old films, some missed ones, and we try to watch it with today's lens and see if we can get anything different about it, differently from when it was launched or when it was released, and so on. And I would say that this film it's at least surprising. If I may say so, it's at least surprising. I'm going to get into the details. Before I do that, I'm going to try something new on this episode. So, I've been receiving not so many messages, maybe one message, talking about like spoilers, right? Because I don't give any spoilers in the reviews. However, it is kind of difficult, and that's one of the challenges, right? However, I'm thinking about maybe putting in some spoilers on this one, but I'm going to reserve it like to the very, very end, like after I even close out the episode. So if you don't mind spoilers, or if you already watched the movie and so on, and you would like to maybe hear about specific scenes that I thought it was that I think it's worth mentioning and so on. Stay until the end, but I'm going to be very explicit when I start to do that, and I'll give you guys time to pause it or jump out and so on. Anyway, as usual, let's begin by the basic data from the film. So as usual, I also use IMDb to gather that data and to also research about other films that I might watch or not and so on, or review even. Anyway, this is from 2009. Gaspar Noé is the director. I'm going to talk more about him, the film was made and so on, a bit just superficially, not so deep. But anyway, in IMDb, 7.2. I consider this like a for sure an above average public review. So what I must say is that I didn't know about this, but the film has over 2.5 hours. So I watched the uncut one. So it seems that there's probably a version that went into the theaters that it's probably 17 minutes shorter, but it's still long. It's still a long film. I'm also going to comment on that. But anyway, what it was actually a letdown, not because of the film itself, however, about if it did any profit, right? So the profitability of the film. So I read in IMDb, I'm not sure if this checks out, but anyway, 16 million as a budget, and a revenue 800,000. So it was a massive flop in terms of lucrativity. But I must say already, artistically, it's for sure something that if you're into graphic design, as I am, my background is in graphic design, then I went into web and so on. But anyway, if you're into graphic design, this is for sure, this is a must-watch film. I'm going to already anticipate that. So also consider that my review about this film is going to be kind of biased because of the graphical the graphical treatment that this film received. So stay tuned. Anyway, the crew, director, writer, Gaspar Noé. Of course, he didn't write it by himself. He had a partner, Lucille. This this last name I'm never gonna know how to pronounce it, but here it goes. Hatsililovic, probably close. Let's see again. Lucille Hatsililovic. I'm going to leave it at that. Anyway, as usual, he writes and directs his pieces, which anyone that follows this channel knows about how I appreciate, people that takes more roles in a film. I know it's hard already, like for you only to concentrate in one specific role, but when you write and produce, or when you write and direct, or when you direct and also act in it, like Woody Allen does most of the time, I really appreciate that, because in my sense, especially related to my work, when I do like more than one stuff in the work that I do, I feel that the outcome becomes, has a unique identity, like very close to the initial conception, to the initial idea, right? That we creators have. Anyway, going to the actors. So the actors, I wasn't familiar with any of them. This is for sure unsurprising. Actually, no. Let's go back again just to talk about like two aspects of Gaspar Noé. So, as I mentioned, he was the director of Irreversible. I'm not sure if that was like his biggest piece when he really became like famous and so on. However, there in that review, I mentioned that I was gonna watch 2 or 3 films of his. 2 for sure I'm gonna watch still. Vertex and I Stand Alone. So what I like to do normally is like watch a movie, like if a movie is very surprising, right? So I normally watch a movie done after that big hit and one done before, like to assess a couple of things. So one, to see if the director, like he sustained his quality. That's why I watch like one after, It doesn't need to be like the one right after. It just needs to be like a hit one after. But anyway, what I'm most interested in is the one before his big hit. So it makes me think, how come he qualified, like to take on this big production and whatever, right? So I Stand Alone, 7.2 in IMDb, 1998. This one is probably the one I'm gonna watch because it was done right before he did Irreversible, right? So then Vortex actually is newer, is 2021. But I was interested in that film because it's very highly rated in IMDb, 7.4. If these two are really as great as Irreversible and this one that I'm about to review, for sure I'm gonna watch a third one called Climax. 6.9, 2018, the release date. Anyway, I'm now going on to the actors. So, as I mentioned, totally not familiar with them, so I had to kind of take a peek at the filmography that the actors did. And also, if you're really totally unfamiliar with who Gaspar Noé is so he's a Spanish director. So normally his films are in Spanish. However, this one is in English, and I was actually surprised about that. But I'm going to tell a couple of details later on, but keep that in mind for now. So we have Nathaniel Brown, which is American. So then we have Paz de la Huerta, which is probably not American, maybe by the name, right? But I mean, she played one of the main roles in the film, but she totally had no accent, right, in her English. So I'm assuming either just her name is foreign, right, or like her ancestors and so on, or she really speaks very well English. I mean, it was really like totally American. Anyway, so Nathaniel Brown, I actually looked at the films he had done. This is curious, right? So, I mean, he wasn't a highlight in the film. He was just standard, right? But so then I looked at the films that he did. Unfortunately, he had done just like 4 films, So I think maybe his career didn't go so well. But this is a good film. I mean, he's not a highlight. Nothing, major, like to mention about him. But I thought it was funny, like for an actor that doesn't have so many films out to be in this, like this. I consider this one important film. It didn't make a success in the box office and so on, but it doesn't matter. What matters is like the stamp that that it gets, as an artistic stamp. This is important. I don't think this movie is like, it's a miss in my part, because I had never heard about this film before I I looked up, like the production of Irreversible and so on. But probably people that are like more into cinema, like real cinema, they probably are familiar with this film. Anyway, so then we have Emily Lynn Lind. So she's the highlight for me. So she plays the younger version of Linda, which is one of the main characters, which is Paz de la Huerta, right? But she was the highlight. I mean, she was spectacular. It's a little kid, right? The little girl in the film. She has maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15% of the film where she appears and so on, maybe less even. But she was really, really spot on what she had to do, and like working with kids, like little people. Acting is probably one of the toughest things, but she totally nailed it. And then I looked at her filmography, right? So she had like a bunch of films. She has like a bunch of films, a lot of TV series. She has even like one called I never even knew that this was out, which is Rush Hour, the TV series. And then she also participated in a film that it's actually now in the top of my list to watch, and probably I'll do a review about it, because I totally never heard about this the Stephen King film called Doctor Sleep, and it's supposed to be like the sequel of The Shining. So this should be kind of big, and it's not badly rated in IMDb, 7.3. So I'm surprised that I never heard about the release of this film. But I'm gonna watch it, and this seems to be a piece that I'm going to do a review very soon. Okay, so let's go to the review about the film itself. Now, reminding everyone, so this first part is gonna be without spoilers, and then afterwards I'm gonna be very explicit when I do some comments with spoilers. But don't worry, you'll know about it. Anyway, so as I mentioned, this is in English, but it takes place in Japan, and also I noticed like in the details about the production, I think it's like a multi-country, like Germany and Spain and Japan and so on. It's like a bunch of countries together, like in the production. I'm not sure how that came about, or why that came about. I'm even going to research a bit more. But yeah, so it has this aspect which is not a common scene, right? It's not a common place that we watch movies in, like Japan and like the underworld, let's call it like that, right, of Japan. So it's not that glamorous glamorous part of Japan. I thought that was very, very interesting. So if you guys notice the poster of this film, it's one of those rare films that the posters like it actually like translates, like it's aligned to the visual identity with the film. It's a very, very cool visual film, visually speaking, film. Anyway, so it takes place in Japan, and this is not a spoiler actually, but one of the I would guess one of the main aspects of the film is that it's in the first person, right? So this is not a new technique. A lot of other films, have used, this technique and so on. But this one, I think it takes to another level. I'm going to explain why. So not only because of the camera effects, with the of being a first person, but also kind of like coordination of the gestures of the actors and so on to convince the audience that is in the first person. Not only that, also like the time it spends on the first person perspective. So normally, like when we watch movies that use this technique, maybe it's like just a little part, like a small part of the film that is done like that, just to give you an effect. This one, it actually spends a bunch of time with it. But then it switches, right? It switches to something else, which I'm not going to talk about, right? Only afterwards. Then it switches, and when it switches, it still maintain, that atmosphere, that feeling that it created on the first person perspective, and that's where like the trip comes into place, and when I say trip, you can imagine something like psychedelic, graphics and visuals and so on. What I found amazing about this is almost kind of like in my point of view, is almost kind of an experimental film. I think in some cases you could even call it that. Anyway, it does a fantastic job, in the transitions. There are a lot of cool transitions, and also still on the visuals. The visual part of this film is really amazing, really amazing. Also matches with the sound. The initial credits, it already puts you in an expectation level, like the initial credits, and then with the music, like to pump you up and so on. It's very, very impacting. This film is impactful, I would say. Anyway, moving forward to the to how the transitions happened. So there are a couple of I would say traumatic parts in the movie. Sometimes it even kind of like spooks you, like it shocks you a bit. There are some a few moments in the film where you genuinely get like startled. It's interesting, and it's very funny because it's almost all of the time is with the same situation. Very, very well thought about, very well timed. And again, this is an European style film, so you can expect like the timeline not being like so linear. So what they did here is that they start like in one timeline, right, and then they kind of like go back, and then they go through again that timeline in which the film started, and then it moves forward. It's interesting. Interesting how they did. And sometimes you are also not sure. There are a bunch of flashbacks also. That's probably already something you can guess. When I was speaking about the child, of the child version of the main one of the main characters, actually. So. This film has a lot of things going on. So it has also to do, with psychotropics. So if you're into this type of theme, I think it's going to be interesting, for you to, especially if you've done already some kind of, I cannot say explicitly probably in YouTube, but anyway, if you had any familiarity, with this kind of psychotropics, you're probably going to enjoy, the trip that this film takes you in. And still connecting to the Irreversible, which is it has like a shocking scene there. This one also has one which is like it impacts you like for fun, right? But there's another one that impacts you like in the same way that Irreversible impacts you. So it kind of messes, with your with your feelings there, and your in your agony. There's a lot of parts in this film that you're kind of agonized, like frustrated with, a lot of things going on with this film. A lot of things. The situation unrolls slowly, but it's not a slow film. Sometimes it might seem as slow, but it's not. It's not. It's kind of an exciting film, especially when it seems like it's going to be like smooth and slow and so on, and then it impacts you. It's a surprising film. I would give it an 8 even, and I think I did my rating there in IMDb. So this was for sure something, a film that I'm gonna remember, a long time. And then going back to the English speaking, right? While I was reading in IMDb, there was kind of like a note there saying that the dialogues were kind of like improvised. And then it seems that the director Gaspar Noé, which I'm becoming a fan of his, I gotta watch, like at least 2 or 3 films more of his, like to definitely say that with 100% of certainty. But for the first 2 impressions, Irreversible and this one, this guy, it's something else. He's not afraid of experimenting. I mean, again, this was totally not a profitable film, and I have a very high respect for that. And when he puts in like his vision first instead of like making something commercial. He did probably made like as long as he wanted to, like to, especially to provide that those spaces where you kind of think that the film is going somewhere calmly and so on, then it bursts out again. It's very, very experimental, this film. This is very experimental. I hope that this review maybe inspire like people to watch this film, and maybe like get some views again and so on, because I think it's a total a waste for this film just to have made like 800,000 out of like 16 million invested. This is a very artistic film, So bottom line, so if you're into this experimentation, I would say, like films, psychotropics kind of trips and so on, this is definitely for you. If you're already familiar with Gaspar Noé's provocative work, this is totally a must see. And if you're none of those things, but you're interested like in a movie that maybe takes you out of your comfort zone, for sure this is it, and also gives you some spooks here and there. It's fun. It's good. It's very good. I mean, aside from the moments that it messes with your sentiments, it's very good. Now I guess we're going to the spoiler, right? To the spoiler section. I'll be right back. Okay, so moving into the spoiler section. So feel free to jump right off. I hate spoilers, so that's why I initially didn't put any spoilers in my reviews. But again, this comment that I received, in one of the films, it made me think, oh, maybe it's worth putting it like maybe a section, like an optional section with comments about the spoilers. So yeah. So anyway, this film, as I mentioned, right, it happens like in the first person perspective, right? But at some point, it actually it goes away, of the first person, and then you watch the person like from behind, right? So then while I was researching the IMDb of the actors and so on, I found it so funny, that actor, the main character actually, which is again his name, Nathaniel Brown. He only has 4 films, but his like his avatar, like in IMDb is like the back of his head, because most of the film is only the back of his head. He rarely appears, like in front and so on. And what I thought interesting about it is that not only it goes out, like to show the back of his head, but also like the back of. At some point, it switches the characters, in which it's the first person perspective. That's why I thought it was different, because it starts with him in the first person, like real first person, and then you see like his hand and maybe like grabbing his phone and whatever, and doing his stuff, and then it goes out, and then it actually travels, around the city. It kind of tries to do like that one take effect, throughout the full film, 2 hours and 40 minutes of trying to convince you that it hasn't any cuts, and it does a wonderful job in that. A wonderful job. It's probably very, very like complex to coordinate everything. So, and then the camera, while it's like traveling to another person and whatever, it's kind of like floating around, so it has this camera effect, and the camera effect is actually part of the story. It's so amazing what this director was able to do. So you feel that without the camera effect, probably the film would be even like another film, right? And then there's like very like raw violence associated with the film. So what happens is that I'm not going to give like full spoiler, but a very hard crime, happens. I'm not sure if even a crime, but anyway, a very traumatic, violent scene happens, like right, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes into the film, and then that kind of like puts the film in another mode, some like hectic and things happening and whatever, and then it deals with the sentiment of people that are close to the person that suffered that traumatic scene, and then other traumatic scenes come into place and so on, and the camera always staying with that floating effect, and then when it does like maybe a flashback and so on, it kind of like does this transition, which is kind of like psychedelical, and then you don't know if it's due to the person that is experimenting some narcotics and whatever, and then it takes you back with that person, Oh man, this is really a trip. And with all like the visuals, the identity, like very very unified, I would say, from start to finish, you could feel that it's like one big whole visual identity thought about, in the film. Very, very well planned out. I thought the result was brilliant. I'm really not sure why this film wasn't a huge success. 2009, maybe. I mean, this is why I do this stuff. Maybe it wasn't, the audience wasn't prepared for it. At the time, at this period especially, I've seen other films with this visual treatment that also didn't go so well. I would bet that if this would become like I don't know, a new release, if that's possible, maybe people talking about it, I would guarantee this would be like a success. This is modern visual graphical language. I was very surprised with this film, very, very surprised. I came in and expecting something totally different. Very, very good, totally worth it. And again, just reminding people that are new to the channel why I do this. The first reason is because it's very fun. Second reason is like to discover films, like this especially. I get so excited when I discover like a film that wasn't famous or a flop that maybe surprised me. There was, Irreversible. It wasn't actually a surprise. It did a lot of success at the time. But there was one film that I discovered about because of Irreversible. So while I was like researching what I was going to talk about, in ChatGPT about the Irreversible review, I stumbled. I asked basically like, oh, give me like the films that first experimented with the type of storytelling that Irreversible did, which is like a backward storytelling, right? So, for example, the one that I was most familiar with at the time that I watched it was Memento, which is from Christopher Nolan. So it tells the story backwards in a fabulous way. But anyway, it gave me like a bunch of a bunch of suggestions, right? A bunch of films, and then there was one that caught my attention, which was from Czechoslovakia, which doesn't even exist anymore, called Happy End, and it was from 1967. So I watched that film, expecting nothing, expecting just a very experimental film, like told backwards. Man, when I watched that, it blew my mind. It was such an awesome film. And then I became kind of like a fan of the director and writer. I think his name is Ulrich Lipzig, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, that film is not only told backwards, because these films that are told backwards, they're like, they're sequences, right? That are backwards. They're full sequences, normal sequences, but, assembled backwards, right? And then they also need to actually they don't need to care about how the dialogues are going to be assembled, because the dialogues are like normal dialogues, right? One after the other and so on. What they did in Happy End is totally another level, because it's fully backwards. At some points, even the what they say is in backwards. But anyway, each line is like backwards. But they did it in a way, they planned in a way that you totally get what's going on, because it was kind of simple. Like the main plot was kind of simple, but how they executed that, it was totally complex, totally genius. It was amazing. Anyway, if you guys are interested in, just check it out. Happy End. That review, I think, is one of my favorite. Not because of the content that I did, but one of my favorite discoveries. And yes, I hope you see you in the next one, for sure.